Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it. The wind rustled through the dense canopy of the forest, carrying with it the crisp scent of pine and the faint chill of an impending autumn. Scott Dixon navigated the winding path with the practiced ease of someone who had walked these woods many times. The solitude of the forest was a sanctuary from the cold emptiness of his mansion, a place where he could lose himself in the quiet murmur of nature. As he rounded a familiar bend, something caught his eye, a flash of color amidst the browns and greens. Curious, he approached, squinting through the underbrush. There, nestled between the roots of an ancient oak, was a small makeshift shelter crafted from cardboard and leaves. The sight stopped him in his tracks, a stark contrast to the untouched wilderness. He hesitated, then cautiously moved closer. Inside the fragile structure, a young girl sat curled up, her eyes wide and wary. She looked no older than 7 or 8, her clothes worn and dirty. Scott felt a pang of concern as he took in her disheveled appearance and the faint bruises marring her arms. The girl's gaze met his, a mixture of fear and defiance flickering in her eyes. "Hello," Scott said gently, crouching to her level. "Are you lost?" The girl shook her head, her small frame shivering despite the warmth of the day. "No," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I live here." Scott's heart clenched at the stark reality of her words. He scanned the area, searching for any sign of adults, but the forest was silent save for the rustling leaves. "Where are your parents?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm and soothing. The girl looked down, picking at a loose thread on her sleeve. "Gone," she muttered. "I don't need them." Scott swallowed hard, the gravity of the situation settling in. This child was alone, vulnerable, and clearly in need of help. He extended a hand, offering a small smile. "I'm Scott. I live nearby. How about we get you somewhere warm and safe? You don't have to be alone." She hesitated, glancing at his hand and then back at her makeshift home. Finally, she reached out, her tiny hand slipping into his. "I'm Christina," she said quietly, her voice laced with a reluctant trust. As they made their way out of the forest, Scott's mind raced. He knew he was stepping into a complex situation, one filled with questions and potential challenges. But as he looked down at Christina, her face pale and eyes shadowed with fatigue, he felt a protective instinct surge within him. This girl needed someone to care for her, and he was determined to be that person, if only for a while. The path back to the mansion was steeped in the golden glow of the setting sun. Scott glanced at Christina, who walked beside him, clutching his hand tightly. He had entered the forest seeking solace, but what he found was an unexpected purpose. As they approached the grand gates of his home, Scott couldn't shake the feeling that their meeting was more than mere chance. It felt like the beginning of something significant, a chapter in his life he hadn't anticipated, but now embraced with open arms. The echo of footsteps on the marble floors reverberated through the grand halls of Scott Dixon's mansion as he led Christina inside. The opulent interior, with its antique furniture and luxurious tapestries, seemed an alien world compared to the forest's humble solitude. Christina clung to Scott's side, her wide eyes darting around the cavernous space. As they entered the main hall, Ashley, the housekeeper, appeared at the top of the staircase, her expression one of mild surprise. She had been with Scott for years, managing the household with an iron hand and a keen eye for detail. Her eyes narrowed slightly as they settled on the disheveled girl by Scott's side. "Mr. Dixon," Ashley began, her tone controlled. "Who is this child?" "This is Christina," Scott replied, his voice steady. "I found her in the forest. She needs a place to stay." A flicker of disapproval crossed Ashley's face. "Are you certain that's wise? Bringing a stranger into the house, it's not safe. And what will people say?" Scott felt a twinge of annoyance at her pragmatic concern. He knew Ashley's loyalty to him was unwavering, but her cautious nature often clashed with his occasional impulsivity. He looked down at Christina, whose gaze was fixed on her shoes, clearly uncomfortable. "Christina will stay here as long as she needs," Scott declared, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I'll make the necessary arrangements. She won't be a burden." Ashley pursed her lips, her eyes betraying her skepticism. "Very well," she conceded, "but I'll need to prepare a room and ensure she's properly cared for. We can't have her wandering around unattended." As Ashley turned to leave, Scott knelt down beside Christina, offering her a reassuring smile. "You can explore a bit, but stay close. I'll make sure everything is sorted." Christina nodded, her gaze wandering to the grand staircase. Scott watched as she ascended, her small figure dwarfed by the lavish surroundings. He couldn't shake the unease in Ashley's voice. The mansion, though vast and filled with beauty, had never felt more like a cold, imposing fortress than in this moment. Would this grand house offer the warmth and security Christina needed, or was there something more sinister lurking within its walls? The questions hanging in the air were palpable, and the answers would be revealed only in time. Later, Scott found Ashley in the kitchen, her hands busy kneading dough for dinner. He approached her, sensing the unspoken tension. "Ashley," he began, softening his tone, "I know this is unexpected, but Christina has nowhere else to go. We have to help her." Ashley paused, wiping her flour-dusted hands on a towel. She met his eyes, a mix of concern and resignation in her gaze. "I understand your good intentions, Scott, but this is not just about providing shelter. There's more to consider: her background, her needs. We're not equipped for this." Scott sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, but I can't just turn her away. She deserves a chance, a home. We can figure it out together." Ashley nodded slowly, her expression softening. "All right, but we need to be careful. There's a lot we don't know." As Scott turned to leave, he felt a pang of gratitude for Ashley's cautious yet caring nature. He knew she was right. Bringing Christina into this home was a complex decision, fraught with potential challenges. But as he glanced up the staircase, where the girl had disappeared, he felt a flicker of hope. This was a chance to fill the void in his life, to create a new purpose amidst the loneliness of his wealth. Yet, the mystery of Christina's past and the uncertainty of their future loomed large, leaving to wonder what secrets would unfold, and how would this unlikely pairing change their lives. The anticipation of what was to come made it impossible to turn away. The days in the mansion settled into a cautious routine. Christina, initially timid, began to explore the vast estate, drawn to the rooms filled with relics of a bygone era. One day, her curious wandering led her to a small, dimly lit room tucked away in a forgotten wing of the house. Inside, an old upright piano stood against the wall, its surface covered in a fine layer of dust. Christina's fingers grazed the keys, a faint melody echoing in the silent room. Scott found her there, her small figure illuminated by the soft afternoon light streaming through the stained glass windows. He watched as she tentatively pressed the keys, creating a disjointed tune. "That's Lynette's piano," he said gently, stepping into the room. Christina turned, her eyes wide with interest. "Who's Lynette?" she asked. Scott's face softened with a nostalgic smile. "My mother," he explained. "She was a talented musician, played the piano beautifully. This room was her sanctuary, filled with music and memories." Christina looked at the dusty piano, a glint of something unspoken in her eyes. "What happened to her?" she asked softly. A shadow passed over Scott's face. "She has Alzheimer's," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "She doesn't remember much anymore, not even the music she loved." Christina frowned, a look of determination crossing her face. "Maybe we can remind her," she suggested, "through the piano." Scott was taken aback by the idea. "I'm not sure she can remember," he murmured, half to himself. But Christina's earnest expression stirred something in him, a hope he hadn't dared entertain. That evening, Scott brought Christina to Lynette's room, a place he seldom visited. The once vibrant woman now sat in a wheelchair, her eyes distant and unseeing. Christina approached cautiously, then reached out to touch Lynette's frail hand. "Hi, Mrs. Dixon," she said softly. "I'm Christina." Lynette's eyes flickered momentarily, as if trying to focus. Christina looked back at Scott, then took a deep breath. "Can we play the piano together?" she asked, her voice gentle. Lynette didn't respond, but Scott nodded encouragingly. They wheeled her into the music room, where Christina sat at the piano and began to play a simple tune, her small hands moving hesitantly over the keys. The room filled with the soft, uneven notes, carrying a whisper of the past. As the melody continued, Scott noticed Lynette's eyes closing, a faint smile curving her lips. It was a fleeting moment, but it felt like a miracle, Scott felt a surge of emotion, a mix of sadness and hope. Christina's music seemed to reach into the recesses of Lynette's fractured memory, stirring something long dormant. For the first time in years, the mansion was filled with the sound of music, a fragile bridge connecting the present with the echoes of the past. Christina continued to play, her innocent determination lighting up the room. But as the notes lingered in the air, the real question arose. Could Christina's music truly rekindle Lynette's lost memories, or was it merely a fleeting glimpse of what once was? The answer seemed just out of reach, and they were left wondering, what will happen next in this emotional journey, and will Christina's efforts lead to a miraculous breakthrough? The days grew warmer, and the mansion's gardens began to bloom, mirroring the quiet transformations within. Christina's presence brought a newfound energy to the old house, and her efforts with Lynette continued. She spent hours at the piano, her simple melodies weaving through the halls. Occasionally, Lynette responded with faint murmurs or fleeting smiles, sparking hope in Scott's heart. One morning, Ashley found Christina on the patio, watching a butterfly flit between flowers. The housekeeper, who had initially viewed the girl as an intruder, felt a reluctant admiration for her resilience. "The flowers look happier with you here," Ashley remarked, her tone softer than usual. Christina looked up, her face brightening. "They remind me of my mom's garden," she said wistfully. A pause hung in the air, filled with unspoken histories. Inside, Scott paced his study, deep in thought. He had grown attached to Christina in ways he hadn't anticipated, her presence slowly thawing the icy loneliness that had gripped him for years. But beneath his growing affection lay a gnawing uncertainty. How could he provide a stable future for her amidst the chaos of his own life? That evening, Scott made a decision. He gathered Christina and Ashley in the drawing room, the fire casting a warm glow. "Christina," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I want you to stay here with me, permanently." He hesitated, searching her eyes for a response. "I want to adopt you." The room fell silent, the weight of his words settling over them. Christina blinked, her eyes wide with shock and joy. "Really?" she whispered, hardly daring to believe it. Scott nodded, a smile breaking through his usually reserved demeanor. "Really," he affirmed, his voice firm. "I want us to be a family." Tears welled in Christina's eyes as she leaped into Scott's arms, holding him tightly. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of belonging, a promise of stability. Ashley watched, a small smile playing on her lips, her earlier reservations melting away in the warmth of the moment. The decision set off a flurry of preparations. Scott contacted lawyers, beginning the legal process of adoption, while Christina busied herself with small tasks, feeling more at home than ever. Meanwhile, Ashley, moved by the change in the household's atmosphere, began to soften towards Christina, offering small gestures of kindness that spoke volumes. As summer approached, the mansion buzzed with new life. Scott's resolve to adopt Christina symbolized not just a new chapter for the girl, but a renewal for everyone involved. The winds of change swept through the old house, bringing with them the promise of a fresh start, a chance to rebuild and heal. But just as the new beginning seemed within reach, an unexpected twist loomed on the horizon. Could this new chapter truly be as perfect as it seemed? Or would unforeseen challenges threaten the fragile happiness they had begun to build? Stay tuned to discover the twists and turns that lie ahead and find out how this newfound family will confront the trials of their evolving journey. With the adoption process underway, Scott focused on creating a stable and loving environment for Christina. The mansion, once a silent witness to years of isolation, now echoed with laughter and the soft strains of piano melodies. Yet, amidst this newfound joy, an undercurrent of curiosity stirred within Christina. Questions about her own past and the mysterious history of the house that was now her home. One afternoon, while exploring the attic, Christina stumbled upon an old, dust-covered chest. Intrigued, she pried it open and found a collection of forgotten items. Faded photographs, sheet music, and a worn diary. The diary, belonging to Lynette, chronicled her younger years as a celebrated pianist and her gradual withdrawal from public life. The entries spoke of a deep love for music, her struggles with Scott's father's cold demeanor, and the onset of her illness. Christina's fingers traced the delicate handwriting, feeling a connection to the woman she was slowly coming to know. That evening, Christina shared her discovery with Scott, who was surprised to see the diary. They sat together, poring over the old photos and stories. Scott's face softened as he recounted his childhood memories, revealing a picture of Lynette as a vibrant, passionate woman before Alzheimer's took hold. The diary mentioned a particular piece of music, Lynette's Lullaby, which Christina had never seen before. Intrigued, she decided to find the composition, hoping it might help her connect with Lynette on a deeper level. Determined, Christina returned to the attic, searching through stacks of sheet music. Finally, she found it, an original composition titled Lynette's Lullaby. The music was complex, far beyond Christina's current abilities, but she was undeterred. She spent hours at the piano, practicing diligently. Scott, moved by her dedication, joined her, offering support and sharing stories of his mother's musical career. As Christina's playing improved, Lynette's reactions became more pronounced. One afternoon, as Christina played a particularly moving passage, Lynette's eyes focused and she hummed along, the melody seemingly stirring long-buried memories. Scott watched with tears in his eyes, a flicker of hope igniting within him. Meanwhile, Ashley, witnessing the transformation in Lynette and the bond forming between Scott and Christina, found herself reflecting on her own past. Her previous skepticism about Christina began to dissipate, replaced by a growing respect for the girl's resilience and the positive changes she brought to the household. As the family delved deeper into the past, they discovered not just Lynette's story, but their own capacity for healing and connection. Christina's parents had died in a tragic accident when she was very young, leaving her to fend for herself. The community, struggling with its own challenges, had been unable to provide much assistance. With no relatives willing or able to take her in, Christina found herself on the streets. Her resilience and resourcefulness led her to construct a makeshift shelter in the forest, where she managed to survive by foraging for food and relying on her wits. As Christina settled into Scott's mansion, the changes in her life were profound. The warmth and kindness of her new home were a stark contrast to the cold, unforgiving woods. Her presence began to breathe new life into the mansion, and her determination to help Lynette reconnect with her lost memories became a focal point of her days. Her efforts at the piano, combined with her genuine compassion, slowly began to bridge the gap between Lynette's fractured past and the present. Lynette's ability to hum along with Christina's playing was a powerful testament to the healing power of music and the profound impact Christina had on her life. The mansion, once a place of sorrow and solitude, now brimmed with joy and hope. Christina's journey from the forest to a loving home was a testament to resilience, and her bond with Lynette became a beacon of renewed memories and newfound happiness.